Greetings everyone and welcome back to Factorio and to our little dispatch station here that we haven't yet finished. In this episode I would really love to know if we can get all of the remaining components, that is the liquid wagon dispatcher and also the dispatcher for any trains that actually have a cargo that has not been delivered anywhere yet. But before we get down to that, we need to make this area a little bit more distinct. So cargo, there we go. I think that's wonderful. Let's go ahead and add this in as well. Later on when we've got concrete, we can become much more artistic with this. But for now, this will do, I think. Let's have something like that. There we go. A little bit nicer. Right. Now then, for the liquid trains. In fact, I'm going to take this train with me. Let's get in. Whomp. And we are going to take it down and park it back up again. Because I would ultimately like to replace this train. In fact, I suppose I don't even really need to do that. Let's see if I can reverse correctly. No, I cannot. I need to reverse the other way then. Let's go a little bit further. There we go. It's always a little bit finicky trying to reverse. There we go. Perfect. And in we are, because it doesn't reverse the controls the way you would intuitively believe it should. If you were driving backwards, you'd turn left to turn right. Shush. Anyway, right, so let's see. We are going to need fluid wagons for this. Now, fluid wagons, what do they require? They need 1 tanker and 8 pipes. We've already got pipes being made. Perhaps we could finagle this a little bit. There's a distinct possibility we could, yes. All right. If we had... Do we need gears for this as well? We do. Gears and pipes. And what do these need? Not too much, actually. So, if we could deliver the gears... the gears and pipes, we could get the steel off the belt. And the storage tanks can be made directly off the belt as well. All right, I think we have a plan. Right, nice little simple way of getting this one done. Let's do this. Whomp. And now gears will remain on that side of the belt only, whilst pipes can instead go on the other side. I'm going to want 2 fast inserters actually for this one because we're going to be using more pipes. Whomp and indeed whomp. There we go. Perfection. In fact, we don't actually even need this here anymore since it can just pull the required pipes straight off the belt there. Okay, so that's 1 step. Now for 2 step, we're going to want... how many components are in this? That's only 2, whereas this is 3, so we are going to need 1 of you. Well, since I do have 2 with me, it's going to be a bit of a waste though to use a level 2 crafter on something that only requires a level 1. So we'll just go ahead and we'll make a new level 1. I think that would be... oh, stop. Almost the wrong thing. Almost. No one saw anything. Right. We're going to want this to be fed the tanks directly. So we may as well just set up the tank here. There we are. And if we pop that one there, perfect. Right, you're going to want iron plates and steel, unfortunately, aren't you? Yes. Oh, well. Means we need a long-handled inserter. And how many iron plates do we... We need actually a lot of iron plates. Well, okay, this isn't actually in the worst possible setup because we're going to want the fast inserter grabbing direct off the closest belt because the long-armed inserter is a wee bit slower. Bless it. There we are, and we're going to need to carry this down. There we go. And we are kind of wasting the electronic circuits because they're really not needed over here. That is a bit of a pain. We actually needed them. It was only you that needed them. Really? What? Why? Why are you not grabbing any? I don't even. I believe... How many we got there? We've got 50 there. Yeah, we need a fast inserter there, I would say. Let me just quick look. Well, actually... No, you needed the fast inserter elsewhere. Ah, yes, of course. I did change things around a little bit. That does make sense now that I think about it. but I'm not sure why it's not pulling in any... Oh, it's because it's already got 2. Never mind. Never mind. Crisis averted. Because it's already backed up, but this arm won't take any more out because we've already made the amount that I've told it to gather. If it was below, this is basically just stopped doing anything because it can't offload it anyway, which makes sense when you think about it. Right. There we go. We want you to be making me fluid wagons. There we are. And we'll input these there. I know I could put it all down here. It's too late now. I've already advanced enough that we don't need to do that. And I don't want to take all of the rail stuff off my tool belt when I'm about to go back to building rails. Now, how many things do we need here? We need 8 pipes and 10 gears. All right, then we'll go for a fast inserter then as well. There we are. Oop, wrong place, of course. There we go. And all that remains is steel at this point. Marvelous. In fact, if that is all that is required, we can make this a little bit easier and just tuck that in right there. There we go. And it's going to require a reasonable amount of steel, I believe. Yeah, 16 steel, actually, so that's fine. There we are. Now then, where are we going to offload this? Unfortunately, I need an extra... power pole just to accept it, and I also need some steel. Let me grab a little bit of steel so I can make a chest. We're just going to, well, we will restrict it based on circuits because that's going to be an awful lot otherwise. Right, and there we go. Let's quickly restrict that. Thank you, but no. I would like you to only work if we have less than 10 fluid wagons. There we are. Perfect. Let's grab those and we're off. Do I need more locomotives? No, not right now. Okay, so we're just going to go and hook this up and it'll actually be a fluid wagon. Marvelous, I say. Because once we've built our fluid depot, then, fluid dispatcher, we are going to need to set up the first node link to actually do some calculations so that it can tell where to send the fluid locomotive. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to build up the stacker and then effectively mirror this setup to the fluid dispatcher, and then I'll talk over the very, very slight differences between the two stations. So I'll see you in a moment. Okay, as you can see, I have mirrored the station and this one is marked as the fluid station. Now, just to cover the stackers that we've got, you'll notice that the fluid stackers, there's far fewer of them, but there are more per line. Or actually, no, they're exactly the same because of differences in the length of the track. But in a nutshell, I don't expect that this factory is going to need as many fluid locomotives as it's going to need cargo locomotives. So we're going to work with the 6 stacker for now. If we need to, we can expand it, but it is the cargo stacker that I expect we're going to need to expand the most. So what is changed here? Well, actually nothing so far. They work in exactly the same way, and if we were to pulse a green signal, both of these would count up 1, which is not strictly what we want. We want to differentiate when the factory is requesting that a cargo train be dispatched versus a fluid train being dispatched. So the way we're going to do that is we need to convert this signal. Now, if we assume that the station will not simply send a green signal to mark that it wants a train, but rather it will expressly state what kind of train it wants. So, for example, it'll send a C if it wants a cargo train, or an F, for example, if it wants a fluid train, then we can work with this. So what we're going to want to do is we are going to want a decider combinator. The first thing we're going to want to do here is, let's see, we could just convert the signal into a green star, actually. Yeah, that's the easiest way for us to do it. So let's go ahead and take this and any input of C, multiply it by 1, it's fine, and output green. And that should do the lot. In fact, let's move that over. Let's keep the whole circuit design a little bit neater, shall we? So disconnect that, hook that up, and then hook that across. And there we go. That's everything we needed. Now it's only going to care about any cargo requests on the circuit, and it'll output it as green. So nothing in this block will actually change, which is really nice when you can get away with that because, you know, change is sometimes scary. Over here, we'll do exactly the same thing. So we'll set that up like so. And with the green wire, we'll just have that pop down and then pop across. And in fact, we can just copy that, shift right click, shift left click, and then change this to F because it should only tick when we receive a fluid signal. Now, the easiest way for us to check this is just to head over here and pulse the circuit once. There we are. Now, neither of these should have incremented at all. No, neither one has incremented. Now then, what we're going to want to do in this case is change this up a little bit. So I'm just going to prevent the circuit from messing with anything. Specifically, I want, let's see, if this is a signal of anything, I guess. If there's no inputs coming in, then it's going to be false, which is fine. And if it receives a signal of anything, output a signal of red. We'll actually turn this off for now. This one, however, if it receives red, don't output anything. Otherwise, everything. If all input signals meet the condition, it will output true. It is true when there are no inputs. So that's fine because there's nothing actually to output here. So if we have a look at that, it's not sending any signal along. But if, for example, we were to, well, let's go ahead and put in L for now just to test the system. That shouldn't be outputting anything even still, even though we've used everything here. It's always worth checking because it's so easy to get confused between everything and anything, and the difference is actually extremely important in most circuits. So instead, let's zoom out, just make sure that these haven't been incremented. Nope. So we're going to put in C, turn it off. Let's just make sure. There we go. It's actually received a signal of 1 there, whereas if we pulse it on and off a couple of times, there we go. We should have a couple stacked up, but nothing stacked up there. So we're going to change this now to fluid and pulse that a couple of times. And hopefully we should have a couple of requests for fluid wagons. Yep, there we go. So that is now working and the correct train will be dispatched based on the request that has been received. So simple so far. So let's head down and we can have a look at setting that up. We can quickly test the system. We can allow the fluid wagon through if we want. Sure, okay, we'll do one quick round of testing. Let's go over here. We'll set this up to be sealed off. Actually, the easiest way to do that, let's just delete the track. So simple. So much more simple at the very least. Right, and you can go ahead. Now, hopefully, if we zoom out, actually, unfortunately, I should put a radar up there so I can easily watch it. Now that should take the only available route that it has. It'll head up, it'll move through all of these, and should be dispatched more or less immediately. And there we go. And that has gone down by 1. Fantastic, I say. Can I adjust that from over here? No, I can't. So, at risk of being run over... I'm going to get there in time. No, I am not. Ah, poop. Oh, well. We'll turn it off now, so the station won't allow that train out a second time. There we go. Right, okay, so with that done, the next part is to set up the dispatcher for our trains with any kind of cargo. Now, this part is a little bit more complicated because it isn't going to work with a stacker, at least not a stacker the same way that we've got set up for both fluid and cargo wagons. And that's because we can't guarantee what is going to be in the trains. With the fluid and cargo wagons, it's very simple to guarantee what's in the trains. If they're there, then they have nothing in them. That's why they're there. The logic for that will be down at the other node station. So with the trains which actually have a cargo, do we want to dig through this beautiful pristine forest? I'm not sure we do. We could go straight up if we really wanted to. There's a pro and there's a con to that, actually. Sure, okay, we'll go straight up. Let's go ahead and set this up. I'm getting a little bit concerned about that little place over there, because sooner or later they're going to start noticing me and they're going to be very angry. Right, so we want a station, but we're going to want quite a few stations. So let's set up... we'll have 1 there. There we go. I want the tracks to be a certain distance apart. Once again, 1 more. And down. Oop, there we go. And the way that we're going to set the stacker up here is we're going to have a stack of stations specifically. Now, the chief reason for that is that signals can't tell me what's in a train. And that's all that's watching these blocks. They're not actually watching the train in any way, and that's the point. They're not just watching the tracks, more or less. Whereas the stations can actually read from the trains. So we're going to want the stations to be set up in such a way. 1, 2, 3. There we go. That is so much faster for setting that up. And you may be asking yourself, why wasn't I doing that before? And the honest answer I have for you is I don't know. But we're doing it now, so you can stop pulling your hair out. There we go. We're going to need a lot of these stations set up, and that's going to introduce its own foibles and issues that we're going to have to overcome. But by and large, this system should be reasonably efficient. There we go. The only issue you're going to run into is if all of the stations get filled up, and we'll approach that shortly. Now, each of these needs to be able to hold a full cargo train, or rather, it needs to be able to hold the largest train that I can set up. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. So this will be where all of the signals. And again, it only needs to be going one way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly set up the remaining stations. We're probably going to fill this area out with stations and then hook it up to the main circuit again. I'll bring you back when I've done that. All right then, as you can see, I have finished setting up the stacking stations. I have also copied it across, so all of these are node stations. Now, the way that this is going to work, any train with a cargo doesn't necessarily need to be a full one, though ideally the trains stationed here and just waiting will have full cargoes. We'll come in here, we will read their contents, and we will dispatch the train when a request for that type of cargo is received. Now, that is going to involve some important differences to the way that we've got this set up. Now, up to now, our stations only cared about a single type of signal being received. This station only cares if a request for a cargo train arrived. This one only cares if a request for a fluid train arrived. And because of that, it's very easy for us to sanitize the inputs. In that when you only care about one specific signal out of a potential plethora of signals, all you need to do is check if that signal is there, multiply it by itself, and then output that signal as green. That's it. We're just doing this and then outputting green. It'll only take the C signals as the input. If we care about the reverse, though, where I want to remember everything but one, or in this case, 2 signals, because our dispatcher for loaded trains doesn't want to worry about a C signal or an F signal, that's a little bit more convoluted. The way that our stations will request loaded trains is exactly the same way that a station would request an empty train, in that it'll send a signal of the type of, well, in the case of an empty train, it would just send a signal for C saying, I want a cargo train. But with a station that wants, for example, green circuit, it would send a single pulse of a green circuit board, and then that would travel down. So let's go ahead and wire that up. All signals will always be transmitted along the green wire, and a red wire, and the green wire will be used for guiding any train that has that cargo, or in the case of an empty train, that is an empty train of the correct type. Now, the way that we're going to sanitize the inputs here is fairly straightforward, but there is one thing that I did want to draw special attention to. So let's just hook these up. Now, you may already realize that I've got 3 arithmetic combinators here. The ones who've been following along closely will know what I intend to do, and that is to add a negative, the inverse signal of F or C, back into the signal, thus cancelling it out, but preserving whatever else was there. But if you remember what I was talking about in regards to the length of time that it takes for a signal to be processed by a combinator, there's that 1 tick delay. So if we simply had 2 of these with the intent that they would then pass along their negative values of F and C back into the signal, thus cancelling whatever might be there, the problem with that is that this signal is already pulsed. That pulse is gone. It only lasted for a tick, so they're just adding a new fresh signal of negative C or negative F to nothing. Now, potentially that could travel down the queue and could get added into the whole and eventually sort itself out, but for a time, it would be causing issues. So what we're going to do instead, the first one here, will simply give back the output. It'll take whatever goes in, multiply it by 1, so effectively not change it, and then output it again. This one, however, will take a fluid signal with its F, there we are, multiply it by -1 to get the inverse, and then output the fluid signal. And this one will take the cargo signal, again, multiply it by -1, and then output the inverse cargo signal. And then we'll just join all of these three together. We can guarantee that the signals will all exit the combinators at exactly the same time, and so we're not dealing with any nastiness. Now, at this point, we're going to need to copy over our clock, and I think it makes sense to actually start building up our blueprint library at this point. You could have started earlier if you really wanted to. In fact, there's two things I want to do here. Let's go ahead and make a blueprint, and we're going to grab the whole thing, and we're going to call this memory clock. There we are. We'll grab all of this. However, this is a specific component for sanitizing a very specific signal. Don't want it. Let's just take that out. So there we are. We have the memory clock. Let's confirm that. There we go. Put that in my inventory. I'll grab a second one. And this time, I just want the clock itself. Once again, I don't care about the input sanitization there. So clock. There we go. Add that one into my inventory. And finally, we'll want a blueprint book as well. Now, I want both of these in here. This one as well in there. And we'll call this one circuits. There we are. My dyslexia rearing its ugly head as I try to work out if there's a U in that or not. But there we go. So we've now got a blueprint book, and okay, I'll sort out my inventory as well. I think I've caused enough of your brains to melt with my terrible inventory management. I do apologize. Right, so we have all of the signals that, the circuits that we need. So what are we looking to put down? We're looking to put down the memory clock. Perfect. Let's get that right in there. Now, the thing with any kind of circuit is if you don't, any blueprint, if you don't have construction bots, it won't get automatically built, but it will preserve the wiring. It will also preserve the settings that you've got in this. So blueprints are still very, very useful. It does matter when you're placing things down, whether they're oriented the same way. So please bear that in mind before you mess up your signals. But there you go. Our clock is already running. Now, there are a few things that we need to change here. For example, right now we're dealing with the outputting a green signal. No. This needs to be able to hold many different signals. And likewise here, we need to output everything, though that creates a little bit of an issue for us. We already know that this signal contains only what we want, and it'll only exist for a single pulse. Actually, one extra layer of input sanitization. Let's not just connect that directly to the memory cell. Let's alternate the wires so that I'm connecting a red wire there rather than having this green wire connected to the memory cell's most important wire, which is that green wire that's going from the input to the output. And that's how it remembers what it's been told. So what we'll do is, again, a very simple little switch here. Multiply it by 1, and then output it again. You can use an arithmetic combinator in this way just to switch which wire a signal is being transmitted on. So there we go. Now, potentially, when this triggers, it'll output, for example, any green circuit request, any steel request, anything like that. Also, C itself. So we want to change that. Let's go ahead and strip out C. Again, we're going to do a little bit of sanitization here. And I know it's a little bit of a potch. We're constantly having to do this over and over and over, but it will help us in the end. And I want to multiply C by -1 and then take C away from whatever output we have. So let's just connect all of that up. And then ideally, we will have a signal at the end that only has the signal that I actually want. And this signal can be sent straight back up. Actually, no. We'll wait on that. There's one more thing that we need to do. At this point, I just want to test that the memory signal is actually working for us, though. So let's go down, and we'll set up our little simulator over here to simulate a station request and a couple of things. Now, again, the odds of several stations making a request at the same time are actually incredibly slim. But it doesn't hurt to make a system that can account for that. So let's say we've got a request for a fluid train. We've also got a request for some iron ore and some copper ore and some steel plates. In fact, we've got 3 different stations all at the same second requesting steel plates. This should work for us now. Womp, womp. There we go. Now, that should have transmitted only one blast of that Q. And once we get up to the memory cell, we'll see if it contains 1 copper, 1 iron, and 3 steel, but nothing else, because there was an F passed along as well. So this is the moment of truth. Have we done it right? Yes, we have. Fantastic. All right then. Now that we have a functioning memory cell, we know that all of this works, we even have some data there, it's time for us to work on the final part for the loaded wagon dispatch, and that is the station itself. Now, before you jump into doing any of the circuitry, it's actually remarkably useful just to take a breather and think, right, okay, what do I want from this? It's so easy to go off half-cocked, thinking you know what you want, but just sit down and say, okay, what am I going to be, what are my inputs, and what is the ultimate thing I want to take out? What is the output that it should be at the end of the chain of the circuit? For us, at least considering the station itself, the only thing we care about is what's on the train. Now, there are a few things in just saying that may be obvious to some people. One, we'll hook this up. There's already one piece of data that we don't need, and that is the train signal itself. We don't care that there's a train signal. In fact, that signal is going to clutter up our circuitry and could lead to unintended behavior with the circuit network. So we can build a circuit to strip that out and replicate it across all of them, or we can just do that. Now, I am reluctant to change the stations, partially because, in my mind, the whole point of this system is that every station is the same. But the stations in the dispatcher are probably the most heavily used and are probably the most unique stations that are going to exist in the entire network. So they do very, very specific jobs that aren't going to be replicated anywhere else. There's not going to be another dispatcher. There'll be several places which need to load trains up with iron ore. There'll be several places that require iron plates, but there's only going to be one dispatcher. So if there's going to be anywhere where we break that rule, it'll be here. So I'm going to copy that all the way down. And actually, that's something that bears repeating in and of itself. Don't become married to rules. Sure, set yourself some guides. Sure, have an idea of the things you want to achieve. And if you're doing a challenge, sure, do that. But I think there's a lot to be said about being a reed that sways with the breeze rather than a tree that snaps in a strong wind. Don't limit yourself unnecessarily. Now, with this information, let's actually set up a testing environment here. It's quite useful to do testing on the way. Now, we'll set this up to say that the train has that much copper, that much iron, that much coal, and trees. Sure, it picked up a load of trees somewhere along the way. Right, so let's turn that on, actually. Because generally, if there is a train in the station, it's going to be broadcasting this as a solid signal. And that will usually be the case before a pulse is generated and sent along the network. So we have this being calculated. We don't actually care how much of what is there. All I care about is that it is there. I don't care that we've got 100 copper. I care that there is copper. So let's reduce that to 1. And there's actually a really, really important reason for that. Ultimately, what we intend to do is to compare the signal that's being pulsed with what's being broadcast by the station. Now, there isn't an easy and intuitive way of doing that. You might, and as I did, first think, oh, well, I'll just take one signal on the green wire and one signal on the red wire, and then I'll compare them. Unfortunately, we can't. The moment data is sent into a combinator, regardless of where it came from, what colored wire sent it into it, it will treat that data as a sum. So if we had one copper being broadcast here and one copper being broadcast here, then all the combinator would see is 2 copper. Now, that is an important thing. 2 copper. As long as we know that there is 1 on one end and 1 on the other end, we can just use maths to compare them. Because if there's 2 copper, then we know that there was 1 coming in from 2 separate sources, as well, ideally. So that necessitates that we only output 1 of anything. So when this pulses, I only want to see 1 iron, 1 copper, and 1 steel. Likewise, let's set up a little... actually, we're going to need this to be a pulse. You know what? I should have grabbed the pulse generator blueprint while I was down there. Let me go and grab that now. We'll set up a little test environment so I don't actually have to have a live train running and feeding back all kinds of weird, erroneous data into the network. Trust me, no matter how good you think you've done your job, always take the opportunity to test it, to test new code in a safe environment. Don't release it into the wild, because once it's in the wild, sometimes you can't get it back, especially if you're dealing with any kind of database. We're not here, but trust me, personal experience has taught me, don't ever do that, because it is significantly harder to clean up your database than it is just to not fill it with junk in the first place. Right, so let's go with pulse gen. There we are. Thankfully, I've never made that mistake on any commercial code that I was being paid to write, but I've done it plenty of times to my own stuff because I'm oh so confident with my abilities until I'm proved why reminded why I shouldn't be, and by then it's too late. Right, so we've now got a pulse generator blueprint. If you hold down shift and scroll wheel, you can just scroll through all of the blueprints in the book that you're dealing with. Sure, we'll just set this up here. And once again, make sure everything is pointing in the right direction. There we go. And we'll have this on the red wire, since that's the wire that's going to be connecting to this normally. We want to turn that off. Really? That's super useful. Oh, of course, yeah. This was sending that signal. I was like, no, really? How did it know what I wanted? Shenanigans. No, it's fine. No, we won't have that. We won't even have iron ore. We'll have uranium and, let's say, steel. Actually, no. Let's go ahead and have exactly those outputs because, you know, it mirrors the what we're actually going to be running it on the closest. Okay, so we're passing along that data occasionally when it pulses, and we're passing this data along constantly. Now, we can simply add the two numbers together, and anything that is over 1 is on the train, and release the train, and then do some arithmetic so that we can pull 1 off the signal. Or we can streamline it massively. Let's go ahead and put an arithmetic combinator here, run a little line in there, and then tell this that for every input it receives, multiply it by -2, and then output that. We should now have -2 copper, -2 iron, as we can see. Now the thing with this is if we add 1 copper to -2 copper, we end up with -1 copper, which is exactly the value that we want to use. Now the way that the stations are going to work, and this is actually possibly something I should have mentioned first, if we just pass this signal along all of the stations, more or less as we do down there, because we only have 1 station, we just pass it to the station. But over here we've got 10. If we pass that signal to all 10 stations, theoretically, we could have 2 or 3 trains full of copper ore. That's actually not hard to imagine, or iron ore for that matter. Problem is, all 3 would be launched, even though we only wanted to release 1 train. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to daisy chain the signal down. And so being able to very quickly remove 1 from the signal before it's passed on is going to save us time. And also we need to pass 1 back as well. So we've got 1 being fed through there eventually, and -2 here. So we want to create a decider combinator, and we just want to know, do we have exactly -1? So if each value is equal to -1, then output that value. This way we will only end up with the potential cargo that matches. Now that will include trains that have mixed cargo. If we have a train that pulls in with, let's just say, an even split of copper ore and iron ore, and we have a request for copper ore and iron ore, it'll just release that 1 train. Now, that's actually not too bad, because that train will eventually visit all of the stops and then return, ideally, empty. So that will speed things along a little bit, though it'll probably mean that the next train is summoned a little bit sooner than normal, but still, that's actually pretty good. So we've got our -1, theoretically. At this point, we want to know a few things, actually. One of the things that we want to know is... actually, let's put this up here. No, we can put it there for the sake of convenience. Let's go ahead and say I've got a -1 here for each thing, or if anything, actually, is equal to -1. Then I want to output 1 green signal, and that is all I want to do. And that should be fed back into the station to tell the train, you should go. Next up, and this is going to be an important one. we are feeding the signal from the pulse generator into here. Now, ideally, what we would like to do is to pass this signal along to the other station to check that. If there's no train here, it should just get passed along straight away. The problem is if there was a train here and it did have the cargo that we wanted, so we've now got -1 copper, we want to pass that back to the memory cell to deduct it from the amount that it's remembering it needs to summon, but also we want to remove it from the signal we're passing along. So what we'll do, and in much the same reason why we've got 3 combinators down here, we need to delay the signal, the pulse, from moving forward by 1 tick, long enough for this to do its calculations. So we want to pass along everything that goes into it, grab that, and pass that out. That's fine. And we'll have that then join up there. And, oh, so, no, wrong place. We want this one to join up here and then pass on. Ooh, actually. Okay, so for the use of blueprinting, just to make our lives a little bit easier, I'm going to swap these colors because we're going to have a red wire coming in from the left. So I want a red wire going out to the right, just so that when it comes time to blueprint this, it's very, very easy for us to just copy it along. So that should all be fine. This will output a -1 on anything that matches. This will output whatever it gets sent, and then the new signal will be whatever that is, plus any of the -1s, which will create the signal that should daisy chain down the line. Now, to pass it back down here, I don't really want to use the green wire here, unfortunately, because, well, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's going to delay the signal by an extra tick needlessly. However, something just occurred to me. We need to do one more thing before we pass the information along. And that one more thing is we need to sanitize this so that we can't accidentally have flowback of data. Again, you wanna protect your database at all times. Right, so we want to pass along pretty much what's in there, just pass it along unmodified. So, theoretically -1 copper. Because the problem would be, if this was moving down, it checked this train, there was no match, so it moved on. No, another train, no match, moved on. This one had steel. So it was like, oh, okay, -1 steel. Pass that back down the chain. If I just took that up to a pylon on a green wire and linked it over there, and theoretically would have to link it up to a pylon with a green wire on all of these, and link them up, eventually one of them would, well, in fact, all of them would feed back to the train saying, yeah, I've got a -1 steel. And it would launch the train. Doesn't matter that there wasn't steel on the train. It would be like, oh yeah, I've got something that's -1, pass the green signal along, and all of a sudden all of your trains launch. That would be terrible. So always, always, always sanitize the data. Would that reach? Yes, it would. Oh, that makes everything so neat and convenient, because this way we can completely bypass this little circuit. Doesn't make any difference. It would have just delayed it, but it's just a little bit neater, I think. But there we go. So that will pulse once and pass it along. But let's not do that just yet. What we're going to do, we're going to create a memory cell. I just want to know what value gets passed to this. And for the same reason, let's create a memory cell over here. This way we can do a little bit of testing super fast. And we'll do that. There we go. And once again, actually, I can just copy that one this time. There we go. That one should be set up. Yep. And that one should be set up. Okay, now we are cooking with fire. It's time to test the system. Now, before you do a test, look at your inputs, decide what the correct output should be, and then hope that it is that. So the inputs are going to be 1 steel, 1 iron ore, 1 copper ore. This is output. Well, we're going to take off the iron just to make this a simple one. And in fact, we're going to first take off the copper as well. So what this should be, it should have nothing in here, and it should have 1 steel, 1 copper, 1 iron over there. So let's pulse it. Womp, womp. Nothing in there. All the correct inputs down here. Fantastic. Let's clear that memory cell, then we initialize it. Okay, next test. Let's add in some copper. Let's say 200 copper. Okay, is nothing. Womp womp. -2 copper. Ooh. Okay, that is not correct. And I'm very glad we checked. But, ooh, steel is 2 now. Why is that then? What occurred there? Let's just double check that for a second. Did it pulse on the rise as well as the fall? In actual electronics, you often a switch will trigger on the high or the low frequency of the current moving along it. I'm wondering if that might have happened here. Let's turn her off. No, nothing is being passed along. Okay, so our logic is not perfect. Oh, wait, no, that's right now. What did we change? Oh, I know what I did wrong. I adjusted the signal here without cutting the signal from this, so it doubled up the current. In fact, if I do that again, just to do the theory, let's take that away. Has that changed the signal? No, but if I add in iron, will that change the signal? Huh, no. Aavak is at a loss. I'm glad that it's working, but I'm not glad that it didn't work the first time. Or, because I haven't really changed anything that I can tell, and that's always worrying. It's as bad when you don't know why something works as when it just doesn't work. Right, so all of the inputs are fine. Womp. We've got, yep, that's correct. This should just be steel. Silly thing. This should now be -2. -2. Okay. What if we just say that the train has everything? Final test, and then we'll actually run a train down the tracks. There we go. Let's also pop on some steel. This is a very full. It's a super full train. Full of all the things, and it's an amazing train. It's actually really long. It's the longest train. I don't know what happened. Several trains just kind of joined together. One of them became sentient, started eating the others, grew really big, actually started laying its own tracks. It was great. It's basically Mortal Engine, go all over again. Let's pulse. Yep, we've got minuses on everything, and nothing got sent down the line. Actually, we'll leave that there, thinking about it, and I'll just we'll use a live test. So, at this point, I feel somewhat more confident to hook that up. There we are. And we are going to take away... Let's turn this off for a second. And strip these away. Don't need that pulse generator anymore. Hook this up, and we should see this pulsing. There we go. So that's correct. We don't want that to be pulsing, so let's actually take it out. All right, I think we're as good as ready. So I need to go and get myself some testing materials for our wee train here. Also, I need to reverse this train out of the way. Testing. It's almost as fun as not testing. No, it's not even remotely as fun as not testing. You should definitely test, but understand that you're going to have less fun. There's not going to be that same rush of, did I do something horribly wrong and am I about to explode? As there would be if, you were just doing it all live. Still, generally better not to do that. Alright, let's go and get myself... yeah, sure, we'll grab the materials that I've been testing with. So a little bit of steel, a little bit of copper and iron. There we go. So basically all of the stuff that we need. We'll fill up a train with all kinds of random gizmos. Now, in this episode, we're not going to be doing the routing station. So I'm going to have to basically hardwire it to make sure it takes the right path. But that shouldn't be too much of a problem. But in the future, in fact, the next episode, we're going to be working on the routing station. And then that'll be it. We'll have a fully functioning setup. And I'm going to be super happy with that. Right, I would like you to be red. If this is showing red, there we are. Oh no, there we are. My bad. There we are, we'll do exactly the same up here. Should have thought about this before I ran all the way down, because I'm going to have to run all the way back down again. Ah, my lord. Oh well. It's good to get some exercise, because once all the trains are done, I'm not going to walk anywhere ever again. Actually, let me just make sure that this is outputting red, and then paste this in on all of these, and continue along the route. We only want the last station accessible for now. There we go. We will eventually actually want all of these hooked up to a wire, For a reason I will explain when we get to it. That'll be in the next episode, but so we're not really wasting too much time here. Right, okay. It's finally time for us to send out the train. I'm going to preempt this. I'm going to place down... Do I have a spare radar? I do not. I don't even have the things I need for it. Okay, that different plan. Completely different plan. I'm going to ride the train. That's what I'll do. It's going to detect that there is an Aavak in the train and not know what to do. But it's fine. It's fine. Let's get in. And go. Alright. Now, on the train, I should be able to manually do all these. There we are. And we'll set it back to off so the train stops when we come back through. Now, normally, we wouldn't be sending up an empty train, but for testing purposes, we are this time. There we go. And what is this reading? Nothing. Good. Let's change that then. Let's put some trees in there. It's reading one tree. Good. Let's put an iron plate in there. Reading one iron plate. Let's see what this pulse is when it does pulse. Everything is going okay. All right. Let's. We'll just start off with a little bit of copper. And will we go? Yes, we will. What is the... what does it say? I can't. Damn it. Been kidnapped. Oh, well, there's worse things that could be done when you're kidnapped. You know, just getting this nice journey on a train. I assume there are refreshments, of course. I would not build a train network where there wasn't a refreshment cart coming around. It's serving tea, and only tea, obviously. There we go. Right, so what have we got there? We have not got any iron... any copper. Let's drop... damn blast. Couldn't get it there in time. Okay, well, I'm going to swing around once more. We are going to jam the combinator to the on position, so this train will just cycle through. And then, once we get up top, I'm going to jump out at high speed and hopefully watch that the steel counter goes down. And boop, that'll do. Thank you. Bye. There we go. So, we have done all of the dispatch arms of the depot. All that remains now is to set up the routing logic so that the trains are sent to their correct train yard based on their contents. And yeah, the depot will be complete. So in the next episode, we're going to be doing that, and we'll probably also lay down the rail network over to our first mine. I'm going to need a name for the depot because it's going to be its own little town, the actual train depot town. We want a name that is suitable for that. We want a name that speaks to us of being a train depot. Possibly the importance, because it is basically a hub for the trains and is easily the most complicated and important stop that's going to exist on the network. So drop your suggestions into the comments down below, and we will see who becomes the next mayor in the... I'm not sure what the name of this world is, actually. We're going to go with Aavak. Yeah, I think we'll stick with Aavak. Aavak... It is Aavak now. I've come here. I've claimed this land. I've got a flag and everything. But yeah, this is now Aavak. And yeah, that's going to be it from me. I really, really hope you enjoyed this episode, though, and will be joining me for the next. As ever, do remember to leave a like if you liked, sub if you haven't. I'll see you next time. Take care, everyone. And look, the train isn't even leaving because it hasn't got any more requests. Oh, it's all working so well.